Morning, evening, or night. Wherever you are, welcome to WHAM today. Take a deep breath, clear your mind, and let's drift through the whispers of today's world, one quiet thought at a time, as we wrap up Wednesday, 4th June, 2025. Let's see what stories are unfolding around us. South Korea. Following months of political unrest, Jae-myung, the liberal candidate from the Democratic Party, has been elected as the new president of South Korea, securing 49.2% of the vote and defeating conservative rival Kim Un-soo. Exit polls projected his victory with 51.7% of the vote, compared to Kim's 39.3%. Lee, known for his populist style and humble beginnings, rose from childhood poverty to become a leading politician. Vowing to fight inequality and corruption, he has pledged to govern for all South Koreans, heal deep wounds, and restore democracy. Taking office after a swift transfer of power, Lee faces formidable challenges, including reviving Asia's fourth-largest economy, navigating relations with China and the United States, and addressing potential North Korean aggressions. He aims to tackle the economy and improve relations with North Korea. Despite past accusations of leaning towards China and North Korea, Lee has repeatedly emphasized South Korea's alliance with the U.S. as the foundation of its foreign policy. He intends to bolster the U.S.-Japan ties and pursue dialogue with North Korea, while maintaining a strong deterrence based on the South Korea-U.S. military alliance. Lee's government will continue his predecessor's policy of strengthened cooperation with Japan. Furthermore, Lee has vowed to boost South Korea's artificial intelligence industry, aiming to make the country a top global leader in the field. Turning to Japan, Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba expressed hope for stable improvement in ties with South Korea on the new President Lee Jae-myung. United States. The U.S. is drawing down its military presence in Syria, maintaining only a single base while shifting its strategy. The U.S. envoy indicated the future Syria strategy will not be like the last 100 years. The U.S. government imposed sanctions on Philippine tech firm Funnel Technology, Incan Chinese national Liu Liji, for allegedly facilitating pig butchering romance scams, which caused over $200 million in losses. Top Chinese diplomat Wang Yi met with US Ambassador David Perdue, urging the U.S. to meet China halfway in improving relations amid speculation of a phone call between state leaders. New U.S. restrictions on Chinese tech labs testing consumer electronics for the U.S. are raising concerns, potentially leading to fewer choices and higher costs for American consumers. Elon Musk criticized Trump's tax bill, projecting a $2.50 trillion increase in the deficit, and later condemned Trump's budget bill as a disgusting abomination. The Trump administration is calling for 3,000 daily immigration arrests, generating fear in migrant communities. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem announced an investigation into whether the family of Mohammed Sabri Solomon, the suspect in the Colorado firebomb attack labeled an act of terrorism, knew of his plans. The family is currently detained by immigration authorities. Trump's war on Harvard persists, stemming from Harvard's criticism of his 2017 travel ban. FEMA staff reportedly expressed confusion after the agency head claimed ignorance of the U.S. hurricane season. The BBC defended its Gaza war reporting, accusing the White House of misrepresenting its journalism following claims from Trump's press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, that the BBC took the word of Hamas with total truth and removed a story about a fatal attack near a U.S.-backed aid distribution site. China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi urged the U.S. to create favorable conditions for improved bilateral relations during a meeting with US Ambassador David Perdue, emphasizing mutual respect and cooperation. A video has surfaced showing a Chinese electromagnetic coil gun capable of firing 3,000 rounds per minute. On the 36th anniversary of the Tiananmen Square massacre, the U.S. Secretary of State and the President of Taiwan stated that the world will never forget the event, despite China's attempts to erase it from domestic memory. Activists estimate that hundreds or thousands were killed by China's People's Liberation Army on June 4, 1989. In Australia, Erin Patterson, accused of murdering 3 relatives of her estranged husband with poisonous mushrooms, admitted to serving death caps for lunch and claimed she may have unknowingly used foraged fungi. Her husband allegedly confronted her about a dehydrator, questioning if it was used to poison his parents. Australia is pursuing an easier path to the World Cup ahead of its match against Japan. Lydia Thorpe revealed she filed a bullying complaint against former Greens Senator Dorinda Cox, disputing Anthony Albanese's claim that allegations against Cox had been dealt with after Cox defected from the Greens to Labour. The Aboriginal community is grappling with a second death in Australian police custody, with Kumajai White's death at an Alice Springs supermarket, evoking painful memories for the Warlpiri community. Germany's city of Cologne is conducting its largest evacuation since World War II, after discovering 3 unexploded bombs dropped by Allied forces 80 years ago. Roughly 20,000 people are being evacuated from homes and businesses, including hotels, a care home for the elderly, and a hospital. 3 bridges over the Rhine have been closed, and rail traffic has been halted or diverted. Ukraine. Regarding Ukraine, Mark Rutte commented on the absence of US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth from a meeting concerning the defense of the country. Gaza. The US-backed EAPF suspended aid operations in Gaza for a full day and appointed a new leader after the Israeli military warned that access roads to the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation's aid distribution sites are now combat zones. China is seeing adjustments across its economy, with the OECD projecting a GDP growth slowdown to 4.3% next year due to trade issues and policy uncertainty. Premier Li Qiang is seeking closer cooperation with Japan to address challenges arising from high U.S. tariffs. Beijing is urging the U.S. to ease pressure tactics in trade talks, telling the new U.S. ambassador to meet China halfway. Former U.S. Ambassador Nicholas Burns advises caution regarding China's potential role in Ukraine-Russia peace talks, citing China's strategic interests. Former U.S. President Trump described President Xi as tough to negotiate with, and White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt indicated Trump would speak with WWII this week. The U.S.-China trade war is evolving from tariffs to supply chain control, particularly concerning rare earth minerals. China is tightening export controls on these minerals, vital for numerous industries, leading to production halts for some European companies. Maersk is adjusting its China operations due to fluctuating container shipping rates on China-US routes. China is investing heavily in science and technology, attracting talent as the U.S. poses challenges to international students. Chinese scientists achieved a new quantum communications record, trebling the distance of a multi-user network to 300 kilometers. China is expanding the powers of its anti-corruption watchdog, including extended detention limits. The State Administration for Market Regulation, SAMR, released draft guidelines regulating online trading platform fees. The auto industry is facing scrutiny over a price war within China. Biomedicine and other high-value-added industries showed stable contributions, with increased technology inputs offsetting decreased capital inputs. Chinese military researchers are developing an AI system for torpedoes to improve submarine warfare. Claims that China's Tiandu-1 satellite is the first to enter a resonant Earth-Moon orbit are being disputed. Despite job loss claims, cheap Chinese goods are argued to have improved affordability for average Americans. China's Zhongmen Petroleum has drilled 193 wells in Egypt's West Minya to irrigate a desert farm. Turning to the United States, the nation has a complex relationship with China, characterized by trade tensions and strategic competition. Former U.S. President Trump described China's President Xi as tough, and former U.S. Ambassador Nicholas Burns advised caution on China's role in Ukraine-Russia peace talks. The U.S.-China trade war is shifting to supply chain control, particularly concerning rare earth minerals. According to Morning Consult, globally, China's favorability ratings have surpassed those of the USD. In France, President Macron affirmed the nation's alliance with the United States, while acknowledging a cooperative, yet competitive, relationship with China, framing it as part of his Macron doctrine. Shifting to Fiji, the Fiji Rugby Union, Fru and China signed a Memorandum of Understanding, MAU, to build bridges through rugby. Meanwhile, in Indonesia, Chinese nickel producer WWII Cobalt Company Limited established its own driving school to address a truck driver shortage when launching a new project. Across the continent in Spain, Josep Maria Gomes at Technocampus aims to enhance partnerships between Spain and China by connecting local startups with Chinese tech innovations. Finally, Taiwan is planning to test a homemade kamikaze sea drone to bolster naval defenses amid growing pressure from mainland China. Israeli military operations in Gaza and Syria have intensified, drawing widespread international criticism. In Gaza, airstrikes and tank shelling have escalated, particularly in Khan Yunis. One Israeli strike on a tent housing displaced Palestinians near Khan Yunis killed at least 12 people, including women and children. 10 Palestinians were killed in an Israeli attack on a school in Gaza's Khan Yunis, according to the Civil Defense Agency in Gaza. The distribution of humanitarian aid in Gaza has been severely disrupted by Israeli military actions. At least 27 Palestinians were killed and dozens wounded when Israeli forces opened fire near a food distribution site in the southern Gaza Strip. The Israeli military stated they fired warning shots at several suspects moving toward their position and fired additional shots at individual suspects who did not retreat. A U.S.-backed aid group has halted food distribution following these incidents, and aid workers are demanding better civilian protection. The new aid distribution process for Gaza's 2 million-plus population from just 3 sites was launched amid a new Israeli offensive. The Israeli army has warned that roads leading to distribution centers are considered combat zones. In Syria, Israel attacked targets in the southern region in response to projectiles launched toward its territory. Israel's defense minister holds Syrian President Ahmed al-Sharaa responsible for the 2 projectile launches, targeting weapons belonging to Syrian authorities. These actions have led to increased international condemnation of Israel, particularly from European leaders, and have contributed to Israel's increasing isolation on the global stage. The UN is scheduled to vote on a ceasefire demand. France will see Pornhub owner ILO suspend its website in protest of a new law. This law requires adult websites to verify user ages using credit cards or IDs. ILO, which also owns RedTube and YouPorn, views this as problematic. There is optimism that Chinese tariffs on French cognac could soon be rolled back, according to Guilhem Grosperrin. This follows recent talks between France and China, including a call between President Emmanuel Macron and Chinese President Xi Jinping. In related news, Pierre Nora, a prominent French scholar known for his work on memory and history, has passed away at 93. He co-founded Le Débat, a leading intellectual magazine. Turning to Italy, Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni met with French President Emmanuel Macron in Rome. The meeting aimed to reconcile differences and explore shared objectives. Meanwhile, in the Netherlands, Prime Minister Dick Schoof steps down following Geert Wilders' departure from the government. Finally, Regarding New Caledonia, one of 7 individuals transferred to mainland France after the May 2024 riots has been permitted to return home. United Kingdom's Rachel Reeves announced the return of some winter fuel payments for pensioners. Ministers will soon detail changes to the £11,500 threshold, which determines pensioners' eligibility. James cleverly criticized Kemi Badenoch for abandoning net zero targets, calling out neo-Luddites hesitant to adopt green technology, cleverly insisted economic growth and environmental protection can coexist in the UK. Focusing on the Russia-Ukraine war, both countries engaged in talks, agreeing on a major exchange of captured soldiers and peace roadmaps called memorandums. Russia gave Ukraine a memorandum detailing ceasefire conditions and guidelines for a comprehensive treaty. After Ukrainian strikes, power returned to 700,000 people in Russian-held southern Ukraine. Ukraine claimed responsibility for striking the Russia-Crimea bridge with underwater explosives. Kyiv's drone strike on Russia's bomber fleet aimed to show President Putin the war's risks for Moscow. The conflict has caused massive casualties, with volunteers identifying Russian soldiers' remains. Drone attacks have become a key aspect of the war, highlighting the need to adapt to new warfare methods. The U.S. Pentagon chief will not attend a meeting coordinating military aid to Ukraine with over 50 defense leaders. Iran's supreme leader has voiced criticism of a U.S. proposal regarding nuclear talks, though he did not dismiss the possibility of reaching an agreement with Washington. The proposal suggests allowing Iran to continue uranium enrichment at low levels. This would occur while broader negotiations take place, aimed at preventing the development of nuclear weapons. Khamenei has emphasized that uranium enrichment is essential for Iran's pursuit of energy independence. Iran insists it seeks nuclear technology for peaceful purposes. The International Atomic Energy Agency has reportedly lost track of elements of Iran's nuclear activities since the U.S. withdrawal from the 2015 deal. Iran's foreign minister also expressed support for Lebanon's efforts to end Israel's military presence in parts of the country. This includes diplomatic actions aimed at expelling those described as occupiers. In London, BBC staff report their families are being targeted by the Iranian regime. This intensifies a campaign of intimidation. The Metropolitan Police Counterterrorism Commander notes that there have been over 20 threat-to-life incidents against people in the UK, linked to Iran in recent years. Chinese authorities have reported the deaths of 2 Japanese men in Dalian. The alleged perpetrator, Yuan, a 42-year-old Chinese national who previously lived in Japan, is said to have committed the crime following a business disagreement with the victims. Japan grapples with diverse internal and external pressures. Major Japanese banks are contemplating a collaborative ATM network to alleviate costs related to security, surveillance, and money transport. The nation's birth rate has plummeted to an all-time low despite government efforts to counteract the aging population. Lawmakers are expected to delay a decision regarding the imperial family. A proposal to eliminate the tax-free shopping system for tourists is being weighed due to incidents of fraud and lost tax revenue, despite the country's ambition to attract 60 million tourists each year by 2030. Moderate earthquakes near Hokkaido have stirred concerns, leading officials to advise residents to prepare for a potentially significant seismic event. Tokyo Metropolitan Police are spearheading an anti-groping campaign, distributing leaflets with maid cafe staff and students near train stations as incidents increase. City authorities and animal advocates conducted a search and rescue following the discovery of approximately 100 deceased cats at a single residence. Japanese conservatives are urging government intervention concerning the Asia-Pacific Peace Museum in Toronto, alleging historical inaccuracies and a pro-China slant on events like the Nanking Massacre. The United States has enacted a doubling of tariffs on imported steel and aluminum. Former President Donald Trump has discussed plans to collaborate with Japan on technology for the Golden Dome missile defense shield. United Kingdom. The United Kingdom is excluded from the doubled U.S. tariffs on steel and aluminum. This is due to an early trade agreement with the United States. India. India and Japan are poised to jointly develop green and advanced technologies. These technologies include renewable energy and semiconductors, building upon their established partnership. Pakistan is taking on significant roles within the United Nations, chairing the Taliban Sanctions Committee and serving as Vice Chair of the Counter-Terrorism Committee. Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto Zardari proposed potential intelligence cooperation with India to combat terrorism. He also warned that any attempt to disrupt Pakistan's water supply would be a violation of the UN Charter and tantamount to an act of war, given its impact on 200 million people. In separate news, a security operation in Pakistan's northwest near Afghanistan led to the deaths of 14 Pakistani Taliban militants. Turning to India, the suggestion of intelligence collaboration with Pakistan highlights potential areas for regional cooperation. However, previous U.S. aid reductions under President Donald Trump have had tangible consequences, particularly for TB survivors within the country. In South Africa, the ripple effects of these U.S. aid cuts are also being felt, as crucial TB research has been stalled. The United States finds itself at the center of this narrative, with past aid policies under President Donald Trump now impacting global health initiatives. The cuts have not only stalled TB research in South Africa, but also negatively affected TB survivors in India and TB testing efforts in Pakistan. Africa is set to receive a significant boost, as Bill Gates has pledged the majority of his $200 billion fortune to health and education initiatives across the continent. The goal is to foster prosperity in every African nation. Concerns are growing that the Trump administration's domestic policy bill, which includes remittance taxes, might hurt African nations. These nations are already facing challenges due to reduced foreign aid and high tariffs. Payment processing in Jos, Nigeria, is cited as a specific area where this impact could be felt. France is bracing for the trial of a police officer. The officer faces voluntary homicide charges in connection with the death of a 17-year-old of North African descent. This incident previously ignited significant riots throughout the country. The United Kingdom's Home Office is under scrutiny, facing accusations of racism. They denied visas to Samuel Anikachi Ibiawuki, the Nigerian owner of BK Security Ltd., and his family. They sought to visit his sister, Hope Ibiawuki Beals, and her husband, Nick Beals, who live in the UK, for a vacation. India is intensifying its global campaign against terrorism, specifically targeting Pakistan's alleged support. Indian delegations are lobbying US and UK lawmakers, presenting evidence of Pakistan-sponsored terror activities. British officials have shown understanding towards India's position. Tejasvi Surya asserts that investigations into global terrorist attacks frequently implicate Pakistan. In a separate incident, the Indian embassy confirmed the rescue of 3 missing Indian men by Iranian police. Turning to Canada, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is expected to forego attending the upcoming B7 summit. This decision is widely interpreted as a reflection of strained relations between India and Canada, despite recent governmental changes in Ottawa. Vietnam has officially ended its two-child policy, which was introduced in 1988 due to concerns about the country's falling birth rate. The birth rate has dropped below the replacement level from 2.11 children per woman in 2021 to 1.96 in 2023, and further to 1.91 the year before. This policy shift acknowledges the demographic challenges facing the nation. Adding to Vietnam's economic landscape, the Cytex factory in Dong Nai demonstrates the nation's manufacturing prowess, producing 500,000 pairs of jeans each month. This level of output surpasses that of similar factories in the United States, underscoring the complexities of reshoring manufacturing. Even with initiatives like tariffs, the Netherlands government has fallen after Geert Wilders pulled his party from the ruling coalition. This was due to disagreements over immigration policy. Wilders wanted stricter policies. Prime Minister Dick Schoof will now lead a caretaker government. A new election will be held soon. No, this occurs before the Netherlands hosts a NATO summit. The United States faces a projected economic slowdown, according to the OECD, partly due to tariffs enacted by President Trump that are harming both the U.S. and global economies. Renewed interest in stablecoins, fueled by the increasing value of Circle's IPO, is driving momentum in the digital currency sector. In legal news, the U.S. Justice Department has charged Chinese students Jae-myung Jan and Sun-young Liu with attempting to smuggle fungus into the United States, signaling heightened vigilance toward Chinese academics and research activities. Across the country, firearms technology developed in the United States is gaining traction among enthusiasts internationally, illustrated by the case of an island resident who designed and produced a 3D-printed rifle. Turning to China, two students, Jae-myung Jan and Sun-young Liu, face charges in the U.S. for attempting to smuggle fungus into the United States, an incident reflecting increased scrutiny of Chinese researchers. Meanwhile, China Everbright Limited stock has experienced a surge, propelled by the renewed enthusiasm for stablecoins, supported by Hong Kong's encouraging policies and the rising valuation of Circle's IPO. Saudi Arabia is currently hosting the annual Hajj pilgrimage in Mecca. Millions of Muslims are participating in this significant religious event. Concerns linger about safety. Measures after more than 1,300 deaths occurred during last year's Hajj due to heat-related issues. The kingdom is under pressure to ensure the well-being of pilgrims amid rising temperatures. Meanwhile, in the United Kingdom, Manchester United captain Bruno Fernandes has turned down a lucrative offer from the Saudi Pro League. He chose to stay with Manchester United at Old Trafford. His decision underscores a commitment to the team. Malaysia is facing scrutiny on multiple fronts. Starting July 1st, the government will fine owners of Singapore-registered vehicles lacking entry permits approximately $70. An effort to regulate foreign vehicle entries at the Johor-Singapore Causeway. Simultaneously, Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim's proposal to construct a new high-tech city has drawn criticism, with some Malaysians accusing the government of wasteful spending on a vanity project, while implementing spending cuts affecting the public. In addition, Malaysia has initiated efforts to freeze assets in London, valued at £132 sterling million, US $178 million, linked to the widow of the late tycoon Dame Zainuddin, as part of an ongoing embezzlement investigation. Germany is currently undertaking a massive evacuation in Cologne, the largest such operation since World War II, due to the unearthing of 3 unexploded WWII-era bombs. Roughly 20,000 individuals are being moved from the affected zone, encompassing residential areas, hotels, a care facility, and a hospital. As a preventative measure, several bridges and railway routes have been temporarily shut down while specialists work to neutralize the bombs. Shifting focus, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz is set to travel to Washington this Thursday for his inaugural official meeting with President Trump in the United States. New Zealand's former Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern has been quite active since leaving office, marrying, moving to the United States, beginning a fellowship at Harvard, and releasing a memoir championing empathy in politics. In related news, acquiring Samoan citizenship does not automatically entitle one to New Zealand's superannuation benefit. Austria's Inequality newspaper is under fire after publishing a fabricated interview with Clint Eastwood. The article, falsely presented as an exclusive cue and for Eastwood's 95th birthday, was composed of recycled past statements. Eastwood publicly condemned the interview as phony. The Inequality has since terminated its relationship with the Hollywood reporter involved in the fabrication. International attention was drawn to the falsified interview because of Eastwood's quoted criticisms of Hollywood remakes. Germany's investigation into Christian Bruckner continues. He is a suspect in the disappearance of Madeleine McCann in Portugal in 2007. Renewed searches are underway in Portugal, near the resort where Madeleine McCann vanished in 2007. The Portuguese police are coordinating with German authorities, who are also investigating Christian Bruckner in connection with the case. In other news from Portugal, the nation is preparing for a UEFA Nations League match against Germany, with stars Cristiano Ronaldo and Bruno Fernandes anticipated to be in the starting lineup. Sudan is facing a dire humanitarian crisis as a UN aid convoy carrying essential food supplies for 2 million individuals in El Fasher, Darfur, was attacked in the RSF-controlled area of Al-Qoma, leading to 5 deaths and numerous injuries among aid workers from UN Food and Children's Agency. The ongoing civil war has forced over 4 million Sudanese people to seek refuge in neighboring countries, according to the UN Refugee Agency. Poland's Prime Minister Donald Tusk has called for a confidence vote in his government, set to take place on June 11th, as he pointed to a new political reality within the nation. Shifting focus to Canada, the country has expressed strong condemnation of recent actions, specifically mentioning violations of international law. Moving to France, President Macron is facing increasing pressure to address economic disparities within the nation. Meanwhile, Germany is grappling with a surge in energy costs, prompting debates over energy policy. In the latest from the United Kingdom, Prime Minister Sunak is navigating complex negotiations regarding trade agreements. The United States is currently engaged in discussions with international partners concerning climate change initiatives. The United States saw former President Trump promoting the white genocide conspiracy theory to South Africa's president during a meeting. This reflects anxieties over white replacement. Trump had previously granted refugee status to white Afrikaners from South Africa. This decision was based on the inaccurate assertion of a white genocide. It was a politically motivated action mirroring sentiments held by elements of the American right. Spain's defense ministry has cancelled the planned purchase of anti-tank missile systems. The systems were produced domestically by a subsidiary of an Israeli company. Madrid actively celebrates its maritime connections, despite its inland location. This is reflected through museums, fountains, anchors, and its popular sandwich. The city also features a galleon that was once a prominent attraction in Retira Park. Syria experienced an Israeli attack on Deraa, resulting in considerable damages. Israel's military confirmed it shelled targets inside Syria following projectile launches towards its territory. Meanwhile, in Damascus, an unusual collaboration sees former regime firefighters and White Helmets members, once rivals during the Syrian war, participating in joint training sessions aimed at building trust and cooperation. Kenya saw the arrest of software developer Rose Nyeri, who faced charges under the cybercrime law for her tool opposing tax changes. This action ignited public outrage and fueled worries about increasing repression in East Africa. Nyeri was later granted bail. Across the Caribbean, a record-breaking accumulation of sargassum seaweed plagues shorelines. This massive influx of brown algae is severely impacting tourism industries. Wildlife habitats are also suffering significant damage. The decaying seaweed releases toxic gases, prompting school closures in Martinique and other affected areas. Canada is currently battling widespread wildfires, causing mass evacuations. The smoke from these fires is affecting millions in Canada and the United States, even reaching Europe. Meanwhile, in Cuba, families are finding innovative ways to cope with frequent power shortages. Turning to Egypt, the family of an Egyptian man accused of bombing a pro-Israel rally in Colorado is now in federal custody, facing potential expedited deportation. In El Salvador, 3 former military officers have been convicted for the 1982 killings of 4 Dutch journalists. Over in Fiji, an investigation has been launched by Minister Roe Philippe Tuizavao after a ship ran aground and the rescue vessel sent to assist capsized. Fiji has also declared a dengue outbreak. Iraq's Jewish community in Baghdad has restored an ancient shrine of a rabbi, marking a revival of heritage after decades of neglect. Italy saw tourists fleeing clouds of ash as Mount Etna erupted on the island of Sicily. In Japan, Princess Kako, daughter of Crown Prince Akashino, and Crown Princess Akashino, has embarked on a 10-day visit to Brazil. Mali experienced an attack on a military base by extremists, resulting in the deaths of dozens of soldiers. Poland's election of Karol Nawrocki as president has sparked concerns about EU-Poland relations, given his EU skepticism and potential impact on Poland's European policy. Samoa has officially declared a dengue outbreak. In Syria, despite calls for media freedom and the rule of law from student protesters in the EU, journalists remain doubtful about promised media reforms. Switzerland witnessed the dramatic collapse of the Birch Glacier, destroying the village of Blatten and raising concerns about future events. Thailand saw a wild elephant enter a grocery store after wandering in from Khao Yai National Park, consuming food items. Tonga's government has announced a deficit budget with record spending, exceeding last year's by over 10%. Tonga has also declared a dengue outbreak. Vanuatu intends to revoke the citizenship of influencer Andrew Tate, who allegedly obtained a golden passport before his arrest in Romania. Finally, the Cook Islands have declared a dengue outbreak. And that's a wrap for today's news, because even headlines need a nap. Stay curious, stay kind, and let the noise fade as you find your quiet. Take care, stay awesome, and I'll see you next time on WHAM Today.